Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to Poets and Quants Perspectives, the Executive MBA Lead Forward. Today, we'll be exploring how leading MBA programs prepare executives to navigate complexity, lead change, and make high-impact decisions. We're joined by leaders from UNC Kenan-Flagler, Johns Hopkins Carey Business School, and Washington University's Olin Business School. I'm your host, Christy Bleisefer of Poets and Quants. Please feel free to use the Q&A function to submit any questions you have, and I'll do my best to get to those at the end of this session. Well, welcome to our panelists. We really appreciate you taking the time to tell us more about your executive MBA programs. And we'll just give you each a chance to introduce yourselves at the start. And William, let's start with you.
Well, hi, everyone, and thank you, Christy. I'm Bill Faulkner. I'm with the UNC Kenan-Flagler Business School.
Great. And Mary, please.
Hi, my name is Mary Houlihan. I'm with WashU Olin Business School. I'm an executive career and leadership coach with the Executive MBA program.
Thank you very much. And David.
Hi, everyone. I'm David Smith. I'm a professor and the academic program director for the Executive MBA program at the Johns Hopkins Carey Business School. Great to be with you.
Well, thanks again for joining us. It's exciting to get into these programs that we kind of, cover a lot at Poets and Quants, and for the people looking at different MBA programs and what may be right for them. Mary, let's dive in a little bit more to your history with the school and experience working with MBA students.
Okay, so I've been with Washington University for 8 years. I started in the career track with career coaching. So I work with both students and alums as they look at transitioning, either working with them on their career strategies, on any type of career transition, networking, branding, negotiating, all of the different aspects of sort of making a change in your career. And then this past year, we took on being also the leadership coaches. Our program has a leadership curriculum where each student gets assigned an executive coach. And so I'm also one of those coaches for the program as well.
Yeah. What else do you think people looking for programs should know about Olin's Executive MBA? It's a mouthful.
Yes, I think it's a program that is sort of Midwest centered. So I think it's a really great program to do if you're in the Midwest. Not that it would eliminate people from other places, but the network that you develop there is really strong in that region. We have a very much of a cohort approach, so everybody is with each other for the entire program. So people develop very close, strong relationships during the program, which help them both professionally and personally. I think one thing I hear a lot, which you don't think about when you're going back to get an executive MBA, is I made a lot of new friends in this program. And as adults, I don't think a lot of people have avenues to make friends. It's just interesting. That's something that people really value out of doing the program because the way it's structured, you really do get to know the people that you're in the program with. We also have a focus on leadership, like I said before, with the leadership curriculum is weaved through the entire program. And then, as I said before, you get the opportunity to have a leadership coach as well. Yeah. So those are some of the strong aspects of the program.
Yeah, very good. David, tell us a little bit more about Carey's MBA and your role and experience with MBA students.
Yeah, so as the academic program director, or as many people refer to me as the faculty director, I work closely with the faculty and in the development of the curriculum and individual courses, and as well as a lot of the co-curricular aspects of the program. So I'm the conduit really between the students and the faculty out there. I would point out that for Carey, this is a relaunch of the Executive MBA. We haven't been working with Executive MBA students for a while, and so we're excited to bring back this new and improved program that really addresses a lot of the real world needs that I think today's emerging leaders are looking for, and as I think just as importantly, their employers have told us they're looking for. And I think that's really important to make sure that we're having an immediate impact on day one, and certainly the day after they come out of their residence, that they can go back into their workplace and find those immediate opportunities to make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And William, how about Kenan-Flagler?
Yeah, Kenan-Flagler, in my role, I serve as the career and leadership, or one of the career and leadership coaches as part of the program. We run three different formats. We have our evening executive format, which has been going on for quite some time. And then 2022, based on our proximity, we're based in the Chapel Hill area, a little bit closer to the Raleigh area. But due to a strong alumni presence in the Charlotte area, we expanded our essentially the same calendar as our evening program into the Charlotte market and done very well there. And then we also have what we call a weekend executive program. So obviously, our Raleigh and our Charlotte programs have a significant regional reach. You can say kind of full Southeast, but due to the weekend program, our students can come from anywhere. And so we do have a good reach there. So again, we run two cohorts about any given time. And we also deliver a good bit of programming, but we're kind of all-in-one coaches for our students. And myself and my other two colleagues, we also serve our MBA alums once they graduate.
Oh, great. So maybe one big network then, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. So David, back to you. Why don't you, let's talk a little bit about who is best suited for the Executive MBA. And when should candidates really think about what's the right timing for an MBA?
A great question, and certainly one of the conversations we have with every potential student out there and applicants about their motivation and why they think this is the right timing for them. And certainly, I think a few different aspects around the motivation that ties into the timing, I think is critical in understanding that. And for some of our more junior, I would say, people in the program, these are people with probably 10 to 12 years of work experience and that 8 to 10 years of leadership managerial experience, that find themselves on the leadership track. Maybe their mentors or somebody close to them in their workplace has told them maybe very explicitly that, hey, you need an MBA. You're probably a little too far beyond a full-time MBA program, and we certainly want you to stay here working with us the full time. So finding a way to, how do I get my MBA at the same time, do it at the right level, and do it in a way that combines work and life in a way that works for them. And so to me, that's one of the key pieces of executive MBA programs, is kind of meeting our students where they are today. Part of that is around their work careers and their busy people. And so finding a way to, have these intensive opportunities for residencies, for example. For us, we do 3-day weekend residencies each month. And then in between, they're online. So they have a little more flexibility in between, working with their learning teams and their coaches in between those times, and to be able to do that. So that motivation for a lot of those folks in that kind of that early career, what I think of as an earlier career, mid-career stage, is really about that next step for them on the leadership ladder. There are a lot of more senior leaders, and I say this around people with more closer to probably 20 years of experience and maybe upwards of 15 years of leadership experience, who've been experts. They've been practitioners. I see this certainly in lots of the professions, and healthcare, for example, with the doctors or lawyers, right? We often find people they're incredible experts, recognized in their field for what they do as a practitioner. But now they're being pushed up into hospital leadership. Now they're being pushed up into medical school leadership. And they're like, wow, I'm not ready for this. There's a whole bunch of gaps I have. And so the Executive MBA works really well to help them fill some of those gaps, meet them where they are again, and really to understand what are the unique differences in what they need compared to some of these other students who may be a little bit more junior, and how do we bring them together? And this networking piece happens even within the cohort. I think is really important to remember that the cohort's a great network, and that networks also out into the broader university network. But there's a lot of great opportunity within that specific network. So I think there's that part. And then the other one that we see, I would just mention quickly, is are people who are pivoting, and they might be pivoting around industry. It might be some other aspect of their world. We've had people who've come to us, been in the corporate world, very successful people. I can do this better. This is not exactly. They're trying to very mission focused people and trying to find that fit in their life, and they're ready. They're like, I'm ready to go off and do my own thing, and so much more entrepreneurial and startups and things like that. That again, these are more seasoned leaders that are doing these things at this point in their career. So the pivot piece, I think, is a really interesting part of the market that we're all looking at today.
Very good. Absolutely. William, anything to add from Kenan-Flagler's perspective? I'll get that right one of these times.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, but yeah, I think kind of similar to what David was talking about. Our programs tend to, have a kind of a certain personality. Our evening in Charlotte program are going to be more that 10-year kind of mark, maybe a little less, not too much. Our weekend program will be more those senior leaders, and due to our proximity in the research triangle, a lot of our students have advanced degrees in other areas. They don't always have a strict business background. So they come to us as engineers, computer scientists, and also because where we are, a lot of healthcare and healthcare adjacent type of roles with biotech, biopharma, and really wanting to grow in those areas and take on more senior leadership roles. And our weekend program, I would say the same, maybe a little bit more wider expanse, maybe more in terms of manufacturing, finance, certainly because of our proximity in the Charlotte campus, that tends to be very finance and banking heavy. But yeah, I think it's the same thing. Students are looking for, certainly, career trajectory, salary trajectory. But one thing you read in the research is that they really want to make an impact. They've been doing well in their career. They've had a lot of success. Certainly incredibly bright people. But what they want to do is use the MBA to leverage either an advancement in their current organization, or, as David was mentioning, a pivot to either a different industry or a different function, or at least a higher level and maybe a new employer.
Yeah, absolutely. And Mary, what about at WashU Olin? What do you see there?
Very similar to what the other two gentlemen have said around the sort of longer tenured experts that are looking to round out their skills, and then people. I think motivation is a really important consideration, and one of the things I've heard from a number of people is that they thought about doing the program 5 or sometimes even 10 years earlier than they did it, and they always say, "I wish I had done it earlier." So I think that a lot of people, as they're approaching this type of decision, there's always a lot of reasons not to do it. I mean, there's the money, there's the time, there's your work, there's your family. But I find that the people that are sort of the busiest are the ones doing the program. So finding that right time, I think, is a really, when you feel when you feel like you're motivated to want to make a change in what you're doing and to expand yourself, that's when you should do it.
Yeah, great advice. Absolutely. William, going back to you, how do you think employers maybe differentiate the executive MBA from, other senior level talent? Are they looking at these people with these degrees as, differently than others in the organization?
Yeah, I strongly believe so. Just based on national research and employer surveys, they do differentiate, students that have the MBA versus maybe those that don't, even though they may have, approximately the same type of work experience or initial background. I think a lot of the reasons, one, just the content base learned, in terms of, what they've learned and what they're capable of in terms of all the content, certainly the ability to make strategic decisions. One thing that we always talk about, especially because our programs in the evening in Charlotte meet once a week, the saying is, class on Monday, I'm applying on Tuesday. So it
Yeah.
has direct relevance to what they're learning in the classroom. They're going to their place of work, whether it be, hey, I just learned how to communicate to colleagues better too. I now have some hard kind of business skills in terms of analysis or business statistics or leading and managing, whatever, or just a general, higher altitude view of the business and how it works and operates. Certainly, as Mary was talking about, these people are very committed. They're balancing very heavy lives in terms of family and work. So I think the employers see these people as someone who can create margin, who can organize their time, and then apply those lessons to the work environment. And then, of course, just the network that they gain while being in the program and the expanded awareness of how other industries and how other functions work. It's just all additive, I think, to what they bring to the workplace.
Yeah. Mary, with your work in career coaching, and what do you see at WashU Olin, and how, the employers kind of differentiate the executive MBA?
Yeah, I think that William put it really well about applying the what you learned that weekend into work the next week. I definitely think that employers are seeing that. We call it that people get the language of business. So if you're a doctor, you may not have any idea how to talk about a business. And so they start to be able to speak up in meetings where they might not have been speaking up before. And that gets them noticed and gets them part of the decision-making process in a way they might not have been before. Um, the other thing is that when people commit to doing the program, from the minute they commit to doing the program, they're they're taking on a commitment to something altering or expanding their careers. And what I see as a career coach is that things start happening right away. So typically people make career changes or promotions within the 2-year program. I'd say 40 to 50% of our students are making some type of change, and it all gets catapulted by making the decision to do it. And then they have a coach, and then they've got their classmates as a network, and they have their professors, and they've got the academic work they're doing, and all of it together sort of creates a lot more opportunity for them from a career standpoint.
Yeah, absolutely. David, anything to add?
Yeah, I completely agree, what Mary was saying there, and seeing the value add, the proposition value and the return on investment. Employers are looking for that. Students are too, of course, right? And I think that ability to leverage the MBA into something else is something that, some of them it's very clear what it is, because I know, because their employers have told them that go get your MBA, and now you'll be qualified to be a partner. I've had that conversation with so many people about their employers telling them, "Hey, you this is what's holding you back. We need the credentials. Everybody else at this level has those types of credentials, and to be able to do that, I think is critical out there." I also think that for some of these students that it as Mary was saying, it gives them a common framework and a common language to be able, and a comfort, right? A comfort and an ease to be able to move into these new roles and to talk in that same language, right? I think healthcare is a great example, but there's many of them. We often see one of the other ones. I think is a really stark example are, for example, senior leaders in the military who are transitioning out of the military. They're way too senior to go into like a full time. They don't want the part time or flex type programs. They want that cohort experience, and they value the network piece, but they really are having a hard time around kind of understanding language, one, and really transitioning that language. But also at the same time, I think there's trying to understand that, just in the same way that sometimes nonprofit leaders are challenged in their sector and talking about value, right? And what is, from a mission perspective, they're not in it for the profit, right? They're not looking at a bottom line in the same way. And the military is the same thing in the public sector. They hinge on the mission. And so they have a hard time sometimes quantifying or qualifying their value individually, and how they do that within the organization. How do they begin to think about monetizing something? What does a business model look like? How do I talk about strategy in a very different way that's going to help the employers that are looking to hire them really be comfortable that, hey, you're ready for this. You're ready for this next step. And that executive MBA can be a great way to facilitate that.
Yeah, absolutely. Great points. Mary, can you talk a little bit about how an executive MBA prepares for kind of like the broader decision-making authority for a candidate, as well as enterprise leadership?
Yes, definitely. One of the key distinctions with the executive MBA program is that it's actually designed to be a strategically oriented program. So you're not coming in to become an expert on accounting or an expert in marketing, or it's not teaching you sort of the tactics of it. It's teaching you how to think about those areas as part of the broader strategic decision making of the company. So it's looking at things from a bigger picture. So I think that's what really differentiates it from getting another type of MBA. Um, it also and I think all of our programs have this, there's a huge leadership component of the program in terms of expanding leadership skills. We also have a team component, which is really looking at your team building skills and how you work and operate as part of a team, which frankly is transformational for a lot of people. They didn't realize they had issues in teams until they get into one. So and also balancing different functional skill sets and different levels of leadership, how they learn from each other is a huge part of the program because people like these other gentlemen are saying you have some military, you have doctors and medical people, you have nonprofits, you have people coming out of finance. People are really coming from all different backgrounds. And as a team, they really work on cases collaboratively. So it's not a singular effort, it's a team effort in terms of how the program is usually delivered.
Yeah. David, same question.
Yeah, I think, one of the interesting things that I'm hearing a lot about from the students, and also employers is also thinking about how do I take some of the tactical skills they have at their level right now. And so one that comes up quite a bit right now is around AI and other digital forms of technology and the application of those and understanding, it's one thing to be able to code and be able to do the coding and all of that, but it's a whole nother thing to understand the bigger picture implications and looking at it truly as we think of it as kind of a systems thinking level, right? That big picture is looking at, what are the second and third order consequences to these types of decisions, looking at how does this fit with the overall strategy of the corporation? You're one piece of it in this business unit, but how does it fit into the overall? And I think the other part of it is that one of the ways that we emphasize the systems thinking is also to look at it from a global perspective. And so thinking about it, in other cultures, most large corporations today are global and understanding what does it mean if I put myself in the perspective of somebody who's sitting in Europe today, right? And as part of our company and looking back at the US and that perspective and how are they thinking about the risk around investments or actions and choices they're making from a business perspective and how that relates to some of the uncertainty or volatility in the world in terms of our decision making today. And I think that really, getting them an opportunity to hear from experts, to hear from the people that are doing this kind of work today and what they're thinking about, how they're doing it differently, really challenges them to begin to think, broaden their aperture in ways that they haven't really thought about.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that we can say is decisions are definitely getting more complex.
Yes.
We can't. And so, William, same question to you.
Yeah, I think mirroring what a lot of people kind of said already, I think what it's really helping them do is give them the tools, in a certain way, the confidence to make higher level decisions. They're given the analytical tools, they're given the decision-making tools to really be comfortable making these types of decisions that is affecting the enterprise. I think a lot of change management is a big emphasis of what they get and what they receive, and talk about how do I lead change? How do I identify change that needs to be made and implement that? Certainly with the global part where we're located, a lot of our students do have geographically or globally dispersed teams. And so giving them acumen to hopefully do that a little bit better. And then I think just a little bit more being comfortable to kind of share what they've learned with other people and helping younger team members and being a good mentors because of what they learned, what they've gained. And I think as we move into the elective part of their programs, our core is very strong, but then the elective part does allow our students to maybe focus where they want those efforts to go. Whether it be more finance focused, maybe more just people focused, maybe customer and market focused. Again, it just depends on kind of what they want to do with that leadership and do with the degree in the areas they want to make an impact in and how they fit themselves within an organization to do so.
Yeah, absolutely. David, let's switch a little bit to maybe the personal development a candidate can expect to get alongside that kind of professional development and what they can expect with the Carey program.
Yeah, I think the focus of this that most of the students come in with is really focusing on who they are in as a leader, and how that's going to shift or change right across the program. Um, Having two other coaches with us here today, I'm really interested to hear what they have to say in their experiences. But what I find that I hear students telling me is really about they came in with this idea about who they are as a leader, and then quickly realized that, well, I can't really separate that from who I am as a person, and that there's this personal development and just kind of opening of understanding some of the connections of all the different parts of their life and how these work together, and when they can help to and find ways to make them work together in a way that really maximizes their motivation, their inspiration, what really that mission focus that they're looking for, that they need at work, but at the same time how that connects into the rest of their lives. I think that's really powerful, and I think, again, a great set of executive coaches do that, and that's one of the values of a program like this. Is like, yes, you're looking at coming in doing this really kind of for you, as thinking about it from a career perspective, but at the end of the day, I think people walk away with a lot more than that about who they are as a person.
Yeah, William, is that true with Kenan-Flagler?
Yeah, definitely. And it's fun when you, especially as Mary was talking about a cohort model, when you can kind of observe and follow the cohort as it works its way through the program. I think one of the myths of executive MBA programs is like, well, the students are going to go, their companies are paying for it, they're not going to make any moves. But we know that's not true, as Mary was alluding to earlier. Our students gain new roles in the program because they get around all these interesting people and their faculty, and they start seeing what's possible versus just what's probable for them. And certainly they're going to have skill development, their communication skills, their business acumen skills, their teamwork skills. But I think, as just as a coach and what you observe, and this is more of an outcome versus an input, but just the level of confidence that they gain. They start to realize capabilities and skills that they never thought they had or would gain. Like all of a sudden, yeah, I am pretty good at finance. I never knew, but there you go. And now I can kind of contribute to those conversations more. So I think that the changes that go through a student who leans up just a little bit into the program are pretty significant, not just in terms of what they gain in terms of the credential, but the knowledge base, the skill sets, and just the development of them personally. You can see, and it's a lot of fun to watch, actually.
Yeah. And Mary, what about at Olin?
Yeah, I completely agree. It's really a shift in people's confidence and also their understanding of themselves as a leader, like David said. Also, I see people's realizing that they can make a difference at a bigger level. So they have that shifts their sort of view of how they look at the world and not just their jobs. Another sort of side on the interpersonal side, a sort of side benefit is a lot of the people have families, spouses that frankly are in, when your spouse is doing this program, you're in the program with them because it's a time, it takes time and everything. So there's a lot of navigating their own interpersonal situations, which frankly, I see it expands those connections and those relationships in a positive way. So because everybody's supporting this for the person that's in the program.
Right. Very interesting. Everybody has to get really good at time management when doing the executive MBA. William, we've talked a little bit about kind of the employer perspective already, but what do you hear from employees about Kenan-Flagler MBAs? What kind of feedback do you get?
Yeah, I think we hear a number of different things. One, kind of getting back earlier, they're able to translate what they learn in the classroom, and it actually theoretical. I think it's very applied, but into an application that makes sense for their particular business or their enterprise, or just their individual role that they're currently occupying. I think it helps them really see the big picture and solve business problems that they're facing. Maybe the students help them maybe identify an issue they never knew they had. and say, I can make this better for you as part of my learning and my process. I think they do help lead and influence in a rapidly changing environment, whether it be AI or other disruptive technologies, and how to just get people prepared for that or better able to kind of navigate those waters as they go through. And I think the other thing, certainly, as we talk about just the leadership acumen that they gain, I can work better with my globally dispersed team or the team I have, or I'm prepared for that next people management roles. A lot of our students, because of what we do in the region, are very tech heavy. They're very strong individual contributors, but with the curriculum and the experience they gain, it prepares them more for technical or even just general people management roles.
Right. Absolutely. Mary, what do you hear about Olin MBA?
Mainly that people are their readiness for taking on an executive role, filling the gaps in the areas where they didn't have that type of training or experience. And we have a number of companies in our region that are consistently hiring people from all of our programs at Olin, but also sending their employees to this program, such as Boeing, MasterCard, Edward Jones. They've been consistently doing that, which tells us that that's something that is making a difference for the people that are coming into these programs.
Absolutely. And David, I know that Carey's is kind of relaunched, and I don't know how much direct feedback you've gotten, but what do you hear from employers about it then, maybe what they're looking for?
Yeah, I think one of the things is been pointed out here is kind of this ability to see opportunity and certainly from a value perspective about what value add in terms of doing that. And so a lot of these people come in with this more singular expertise in a particular area. And this begins to, again, broaden their perspectives and seeing, oh, well, and other opportunities as they begin to see how other leaders, how their classmates are doing this, how some of the opportunities they have to work with other leaders that we're connecting them with, how they're doing it. And they start to see, oh, this is how this works. And then they take that back and they can start to see those connections. And so that translates into, again, value add for their own organization. And I think that systems level thinking is something that can be found on day one when they go back in there. The other part is from a leadership perspective is really having them show up with a lot more intellectual humility in terms of what they know and more curiosity, right? Those to me, those go together in terms of what the students, how they learn that in our program and then how they take that back into their organization to make them better leaders and to make them more effective in terms of seeing, again, other ways to add value across their organization. One of the ones that, we specifically, when we redesigned our program, one of the things that employers asked us for is like, look, I don't care if they're working in finance, if they're in operations or wherever they are, whatever business unit they're in my organization, I need them to have a certain level of confidence and comfort when it comes to AI and other technologies. A lot of them don't have that. Unless they came in with that already, right? That was something that they just happen to be an expert in that area. Most of them don't have that, and I need them to be comfortable with. I don't need them to do the coding. I need them to understand exactly how these things, widgets and all these apps and things work. But I do need them to know how to ask the right questions, see where the applications are, where the risks are, what I need to be aware of, and where's there's opportunity to apply these in ways that, again, they're adding value. So we integrated that AI across the curriculum in a way that where they get some specific courses, but other places, again, they're looking at it. You're in an accounting course, and we're going to talk about AI applications and ways that you can use that. Again, you're not going to write it. You're not going to code it. You're not going to do any of that. But you do need to know how it works, right? And how I might be able to apply it in a given setting.
Yeah, absolutely. And Mary, we've already talked some, kind of about the global aspect of so many businesses these days. Obviously, the large corporations, but even smaller businesses that are trying to source materials or sell overseas or anything. Tell us a little bit about how the Olin program helps develop that kind of global fluency for the candidates.
Yeah, we have a strong global component. There's a a part of the curriculum that's focused primarily on global business, including an international residency where the class goes over to a different part of the world and has a residency. We've been moving it around. It used to be consistently in China, and then when COVID happened, it moved to South America, and then it's gone to Europe, and now it's next time is Vietnam.
Hmm.
So it's
Mm.
just an opportunity to get that different cultural and global perspective. The other thing is a lot of the cases you're working with global companies, so in a global world, and it's sort of built into how you talk about a lot of the cases that you're working with already. So it's kind of comes in the program in a lot of ways.
Great. David, what about at Carey's EMBA?
Yeah, very similar. We have a global residency that's a requirement as part of the curriculum. Um, our plan is to move it around. Our first cohort's going to London, and again, the coursework will vary a little bit based off of the faculty member that's leading that residency. Our first one is going to be focused on uncertainty and risk and decision making at a global level. And so, again, being able to assess that volatility in the world, how decision makers are doing that from a business perspective. And then we're going to hear from, again, all of us have our connections at our international colleagues, universities around the world, and to be able to hear what are they studying, what are they working on, what's their expertise, and to get, again, the perspective from their students as well. And so, again, you can have a little bit of a cohort connection as well at some of these other universities.
Yeah. Oh, very exciting. William.
Yeah, similar. Obviously in the curriculum, they have brand strategy and econ and supply chain on the global basis. We also offer different international immersions for our students. One that a lot of our students do take advantage of is called the Global Entrepreneurship Lab. That's where they work with a number of companies and a particular company. We've been in Luxembourg for the past several years, where they kind of work in a consultant capacity and work virtually with these organizations. And then the capstone is they do travel to Luxembourg and spend a week with these organizations, delivering their recommendations, hearing about the results. And so they have that opportunity. So that's a fairly intense experience. Our students also can take advantage of more, I guess, shorter duration opportunities called GIEs. These are global immersions, or a little bit shorter durations, or another one they call doing business in. And that's a little bit more of a deep dive with a particular country and what that, and they have great opportunities to meet businesses and individuals who from those organizations, leaders in those organizations. So again, it's more of a, I guess you would say, call more of a menu approach that they have that they can take advantage while they're in the program.
Yeah, very good. And David, I guess what kind of career advantages do you think come from having that kind of global leadership experience, maybe on a resume or even in a company that you already work for?
Yeah, I think a few things come to mind. And one of them, is certainly people are looking for your ability to adapt and your agility as a leader. And certainly the having that experience and from another country's perspective, another culture's perspective, the interactions that happen there and the skills and leading teams cross-culturally. I think that's an important part. And certainly lots of organizations are looking for that today. It's not something that's always kind of organically grown coming out of other companies and institutions. So I think that's a big part of it is that cross-cultural skill set that they learn and seeing and doing that. I think there's also leading teams. I think of it more broadly, leading teams in a distributed environment, and that is something that's common to so many so many companies, whether that's in a regional setting within the U.S. or it's across the world, right? It can be in lots of ways, but you may reside in the United States, but you are leading teams, a distributed set of teams across 4 different regions, or you may be connected to a particular region that you're responsible for a customer base or a client base in that way. And so, again, there's a lot of more cross-cultural components to this today from a leadership level, from a strategic thinking level, and then certainly a business level that, again, you get a lot of those different aspects in a global immersion. It's not, you don't get everything at once, but it's certainly a starting point for many who haven't had that at all.
Yeah. William, what about those career advantages that you see?
Yeah, I think certainly, mirroring what David said, but I think also in terms of how to lead these very time dispersed, heavily matrix teams is certainly an advantage. When they have to be able to respond to phone calls based on the time zone, that's not always convenient to us domestically, but they certainly need to do so and gain skills in that. I think a lot of it is just gaining awareness that how it's different doing business in that particular, how the people like to operate differently. How do you manage and supervise and lead people differently just based on what their culture expects and requires of their leaders to do so? And I certainly think, just general business acumen, awareness of what happens and how it's different, I think certainly gives them advantages.
Yeah, absolutely. Mary, anything to add?
I would agree with the agility that you need to operate in a global environment right now, that would be a big advantage, is just being able to be more agile. I was speaking to an alum, this was about 6 months ago, about the changes that they were making to their supply chain, like literally daily, weekly. When
Yeah.
those tariffs first came in, they were just like, well, we're making it here this day, and then next week we're making it in a different company in a different country. And that kind of a real time being able to adjust and adapt and operate in this tough global environment.
Right, absolutely. Well, the people who will be watching this are the people you work with all the time, people looking for an EMBA, considering an EMBA. It's a very daunting process when you're thinking about it. So let's just talk a little bit about the advice that you have for professionals in this journey right now, considering an EMBA, maybe looking at which school is right for them. And William, we'll start with you.
Okay, that's a great question. So I think part of it is just having a real clear why you want to do this. And my colleagues hate when I say this, but I say this all the time. Like an executive MBA is not for a job. You're going to get a job. An executive MBA is for that lifelong career relevance where you're going to use the degree not just for what's next, but well beyond that. So having a real clear why you want to do this. What is the direction? Maybe you don't know the exact destination, but what's the motivation for doing so? I think it's really important because, yeah, these will get busy and these are very rigorous programs. And so having a clear, sustained goal for getting through this is going to carry them through that process. I think the other part is just, in terms of the program, think about what format fits you. What are you like? Some of my students, they pick the evening program because they like the discipline of coming to class once a week. It just keeps the momentum. It's easier to do. They just helps them with accountability. Whereas some of my students, the weekend program works because that's once a month. We alternate between on-site and asynchronous, but it is a lot more asynchronous work. So you have to be a little bit more of a self-driven person to maybe complete that program. So again, it's just what format do I learn best in? How do I think I want to be successful? And certainly the network that I want to be attached to. Again, there may be some people that are ahead of me in their careers, some people a little bit further, a little bit earlier, but where do I want to fit myself in those kind of environments and who do I want to learn best with? Are just a couple of things. And I guess the other thing is, is what you're trying to do, is it MBA worthy?
Right.
Is it going to be something that's really going to capitalize the time and investment you're making in this great endeavor, but it's going to personally reward you and the organizations you work with?
Yeah, all great advice. Mary, how about you?
Yeah, I would say in terms of advice, as William was saying about your motivation and why are you doing this, when you see that the difference it could make for you, don't talk yourself out of it. And that's just where people go into into all the reasons why it's not a good time, as opposed to just putting yourself in it and trusting that it's going to make that difference. The other thing in terms of deciding what program, we're a smaller program in the Midwest region. So if you're looking at your network, you consider, well, what program is going to help you most with the network that you're trying to build. If you want to be part of a larger program or a smaller program, or, there's those kinds of aspects. What does the school specialize in so that you're getting the advantage of that? And I think all of those are considerations as you decide which program to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I think knowing about the kind of network a school has and what you want to do is a really important consideration. And Carey, we'll close with you for advice.
Yeah, I completely agree with my colleagues. All great advice for that executive MBA student looking for why I should do the program or why I should do a specific program. I One of the things I always come back to the students about is really that this is an investment in you, and you need to take ownership of that, and also recognize that for so many years many of us have uh, done the work in our careers, done all this work, right? But we don't always invest in ourselves, and this is your time to invest in you. So be thoughtful, be deliberate, be purposeful in how you invest in you, and what's gonna bring you that, what you're looking for, right? What is it at the end of the day that we're trying to get out of this? And just like Bill said, it's not a job. You have a job. You're gonna have a job at the end. That's not that's a those are table stakes, right? That's not even a reason to even talk about it, right? But there's more. This is an investment in you and what you want to be, how you want to grow. This is the dream building opportunity for you. If you have this thing that you've always wanted to do, here's an opportunity to learn about how you might want to get into doing that. And then, just like Mary said, I think positioning yourself within the network, the type of expertise, the reputation, whatever it is that you need to get you there. You know what that is for each of the different schools, and we all have those for our programs. Is figure out what that is and then align it. And that last part, I think, about Bill mentioned about the cohort. Cohort size is a big piece of how you will experience the program itself. And so thinking about what that feels like, what it looks like, maybe in past experiences in higher ed or working with other teams, what is it? What really resonates with you, and where is that going to be a good fit?
Yeah, I love that phrase, dream building opportunity. Such a great descriptor for this. Well, thank you all for taking the time to visit with us and really share some of the inner missions and workings of your programs. And of course, thanks to all the viewers. Over the next hour, you can continue the conversation in a series of breakout sessions with each of these schools. You'll be able to get practical details on formats, time commitments, and what each school looks for in candidates. And as always, be sure to go to poetsandquants.com for other informative articles, videos, and more to help you decide which programs are the best fit for you. As always, see you next time.